What is your Tinder horror story? Story 1. Well, I've only gone on one Tinder date. We talked for a bit and I agreed to pick her up at Starbucks. She looked nothing like her pictures, but I thought I should be nice and at least hang out with her for a bit. We went to her place and the entire house reeked like cat pee, like saturated. Then as she proceeded to show me her massive collection of animal tail butt plugs, she screamed at her chihuahua and smacked it right on the nose, and without missing a beat, just asked if I want to make out on the couch. I awkwardly sat down and pretended to look at my phone and made up that my grandma was dying so I could get the F out of there. Story 2. Talked to him for 2 weeks before we went out, and no red flags, so we ended up going out to dinner. I said I hadn't been out in a while because I was trying to save money for a washer and dryer. He told me instead of saving for that, I should save for a breast job. I didn't even know how to reply, so he followed up with, "No, it's not a bad thing. My sister and my mom both had small breasts and got breast jobs, and they look amazing now." This is all before the waitress even brought our drinks. I just got up and left. We were supposed to meet at 9 p.m. He fell asleep and called me at 9:30 when I was already at the carnival. I told him not to bother coming as I didn't want to see him. He asked for another chance and I agreed. Unfortunately, my dad got really ill and had to spend the next 6 weeks in the hospital with me visiting him daily. I had no time for dates and he got extremely mad. He made a fake Instagram account which he used to follow me and everybody that I followed. He then saw me in a friend's Instagram story and showed up to the restaurant we were at. He called me the B word and a liar, and we had to threaten to call the police because he would not leave. Some of you are asking how it ended, and I'll just add this to my comment. He had my number and kept calling me using different phones. I knew it was him because he'd just be silent and I could hear him breathing. He did this for over 10 months. I was even living in a different country towards the end. One day I was expecting a call from a friend and had a missed call from a landline, so I called back. It was his mom. I explained to her what was happening, and after a long silence she said, "Please don't call the police. I will talk to him." Never heard from him again. Matched with my best friend forever's fiancé after the engagement party. Screenshots of everything and lost my best friends forever because I don't play that. I was uninvited to the wedding. Marriage lasted 18 months. Since so many have asked, I did not swipe right. I took a screenshot and asked my friend what she wanted me to do. She asked me to swipe right to see if it was active. I did and he messaged me asking to hook up. I told him off. He still wanted to hook up. I gave her all the screenshots. He uninvited me from the wedding because he was certain I would embarrass him. He was correct. I wouldn't sleep with my friend's fiancé, nor would I pretend that he wasn't a jerk. That's why the friendship ended. She was from a culture that required marriage before children. She was desperate for a baby and thought he was her last chance. He was running for a public office and wanted the smiling wife and cute baby. Yes, they both used each other. My worst Tinder experience was pretty traumatizing for me at the time. I was a sophomore in college and she was a junior or senior at the same school. The first time we ever hung out, I went over to her apartment and we just watched some Netflix and hung out. Nothing crazy. I was thinking this chick is super cool, we may have something here. So I leave telling her I'd like to see her again if she is down. She told me she would love to and just hit her up whenever and we'll make some plans. We start texting/Snapchatting throughout the week and organize some plans for the following weekend. Out of nowhere she starts sending me unsolicited nudes. Never once asked for them, and when we were hanging out the weekend prior, there was no sexual activity at any level. We quite literally Netflix and chilled. It caught me off guard, but I was more than cool with it. I'm a young college guy and this hot older chick wants to send me nudes after only hanging out one time? Say less. Fast forward to the weekend, she comes to my apartment and we're hanging out with my roommates watching something on the TV. She asks me if she can stay the night, and after sending nudes to me all week, I kinda figured what was up, so in my head I'm like, F yes. But I tell her of course, and to be polite I offer to sleep on the couch because we've only known each other for about 2 weeks and have only seen each other in person one time prior. She tells me she'd rather me sleep in my bed with her, so I know it's on. We get to Netflix and chilling in my room and I make a move. We start to hook up and eventually wind up having intercourse. I wore protection and ended inside of it and tossed it off to my side of the bed. As we're laying there after a few minutes, she gets up abruptly, comes around to my side of the bed and grabs the protection off the floor and runs into the bathroom. I'm a little confused, maybe a little concerned, but kind of brush it off. As I'm laying there in my bed, I hear a loud crash in my bathroom. She yells F. I ask if she's okay and get no response. I'm a little concerned, thinking this girl just fell in my bathroom and cracked her head open or something. I go to open the door, and she's standing in my shower with one leg propped up, trying to shove the protection up her organ after she flipped it inside out. I freak out, no clue what to do. She's clearly freaked out and probably embarrassed. I have no clue. I shut the door and she immediately comes back out, says she's gonna leave, and I say sounds good. I never hear from her again. Found a profile using a picture of me that was obviously ripped from my Facebook account. Come to find out it was my ex-wife trying to stir up drama and problems between my current wife and myself. A single friend of ours texted me a screenshot of it. My wife is an intelligent woman and didn't fall for it. This became a horror story for my ex because this, among other shady things she had done, landed her with stalking charges and identity theft charges. Sucks to be stupid. We lived about 25 minutes from each other, so we agreed to meet at the beach pier, about halfway between. Before meeting, we'd been texting, and he seemed totally normal. I was already at the pier when he texted me saying he can't meet me there because his license is revoked, and it's too far for him to walk. I should have left just then, but I agreed to meet him at a pizza place closer to him. I get there, and I'm standing outside when I see him, and quickly realize the pictures from his profile were at least 3 to 5 years old. Homeboy looks like the dollar store version of himself. Greasy, looks like he hasn't showered in days, hair undone, holes in his shirt. I awkwardly give him a side hug and suggest we get a seat, and he says, "Oh no, we're not getting pizza. Let's go to the park." I awkwardly say, "Okay." And as he talks, I realize his gums and tongue ring are stained black from smoking. By this point, I'm completely turned off and I'm just keeping up with formalities. So we get to the park and find a bench to talk, and before I can sit down, homie pulls me onto his lap, squeezing me and saying, "God, baby girl, you are so effing cute." I awkwardly scooch away and try to get a conversation going. He pulls out his phone and starts texting for a few minutes, not really listening to me, before interrupting with, "Have you smoked? My friend is a plug. We could go back to my place for a bowl." I decline. "Aw, come on, baby girl, my place is just right there. We could have some fun too." I decline again. Next thing you know, he pulls me close by the face and whispers, "You're so innocent," before broad-tongued licking my face from chin to ear. Shell-shocked, I just sit there for a moment processing what the hell just happened as he keeps talking about the plant before I decide to fake an urgent phone call and leave. Why did it take you so long to fake an urgent phone call? First date, we went to see a movie. She brought her sister along without consulting me at first, and I somehow ended up paying for both of their tickets. Bit of a doormat, old me. We went to see Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Turns out neither of them had seen a Star Wars film before, nor had any idea at all what was going on. Awesome. Date ended at McDonald's after the movie with 1 hour or more of her eating fries one at a time, and her sister talking crap about basically everyone at her work. To this day, I'm not sure what that date was even about. There was no second date. Chatted with this girl for about 2 weeks. Every conversation went well, and eventually I got her number and she started sharing nudes and speaking dirty. Late on evening, after a stressful workday, she talks me into driving an hour to come get coffee with her. She spends the next hour and a half non-stop talking about her ex, and how she has to see him at the bank, and all this personal upset ex-girlfriend stuff. She cuts me off anytime I try to speak, or change the subject right back to him. A day later, I got a text about how I didn't do any talking, and I was too boring to be anything more than just friends with. She got irritated when I pointed out she would not allow me to speak and only wanted to talk about her ex-boyfriend, when we've never once had a slow or boring conversation before meeting up. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And she was like, "Don't talk to me unless you plan on doing me with your 9-inch. Can I say this stuff in YouTube? I forgot what my reply was, but she obviously never messaged back. Then a week later, I'm getting McDonald's and this girl was the one who handed me my food. She recognizes me instantly and just had this total look of fear in her eyes. I walked out of there so quick. That poor girl thought I purposely sought her out to confront her or something. Met a guy, decent conversation, smart, funny, mutual nerdy hobbies. We decide to meet up at the local gamer bar and play some games while having our first date. Get in, sit down, dude has no teeth. He says a hack dentist told him they all had to be removed. Couldn't get dentures due to budget. Needed to wait for bone shards to fall out of his gums, etc. Proceeded to spit all over our food while talking, which granted, I knew he couldn't help, but if he can hide something this big from someone, what else could he be hiding? Plus, I couldn't stomach the thought of making out with someone with no teeth. A chick said she was having a work party at her house and I should come over. It's a bring your own beverage, so I bought a 6-pack for myself. Went to her place and noticed more than half of the people were younger, 17 to 18, while I was 21 and the girl was also 21. Then they gathered everyone in the living room and proceeded to talk about the job. Turns out it was one of those pyramid scheme recruiting gatherings. I just sat there drinking my beer, only one drinking, for 2 hours because I thought it was rude to leave because they were telling sob stories and saying how much this job had helped them. Sat there listening to some head of the group guy saying how we can make millions in a short amount of time. Saying bullcrap like, "Do you see my BMW 3 Series out front? That's a company car that you can drive around in, if you do what we do." It was sad because they were trapping low-income teens that are deciding not to go to the college and to join them. After the pitch, I pretty much had enough and was preparing to leave. Then the girl came up to me and asked what I thought of it, and I just said it's not for me and I'm leaving. She asked if I wanted to take my beer and I said they needed it more than I did. 2 or 3 weeks later, she sent me a text, unfortunately we exchanged numbers, asking if the head of the group guy can call me and ask me questions on why I'm not signing up and how I thought the group session went. I didn't reply, but sure enough the dude called me and I politely said it's not for me, but he kept pushing. Finally, I had to tell him to piss off. And that was the end of that. Never went to work parties for a Tinder date again. It was a complete crap show, and if it wasn't for the beer I brought or the Tinder date's dog, I would have just left. Looking back on it, during the pitch, the head of the group guy said at one point, "If you're not interested in making $1 million, you can just leave. No one's stopping you." I really wish I stood up, chugged my beer and said, "F this shit, you guys are all stupid and no one should be joining. You will ruin your lives," and walk out. But that's just a daydream I have in the shower. Not Tinder but Match.com, and right in its infancy too long time ago when it was just weirdos doing online dating. I matched and met up with a girl. She was way hotter than me, like crazy hot, way out of my league. The date was going super well and we'd even made out a bit. Couldn't believe my luck. We decided that it was going so well we'd keep it going and headed to a bar. We were getting cozy in a corner when a group of African lads came into the bar. I live in a very homogeneous white country to the point that would even be noteworthy, especially at that time. She got up off where we were sitting and began shouting abuse at the lads who came in saying they didn't belong here and dropping the N-word several times. I felt like that moment in a horror movie where the camera zooms on your face and the background zooms out. I just got up and walked out. She tried to call me the next day to set up another date. I just ignored her. Clearly effing nuts. Too good to be true in the truest sense. Not my story, but I knew a guy who had a Freudian slip, more dark side Kermit. Bad enough that it ruined everything. I was told this by him after he got home, and suffice to say he was like, "Why the F did I say that?" Date had been going well, and they were walking to a bus station. They passed a creepy alley, and she said something to the effect of, "Wow, I would not like to go down that alley." To which he responded, "I imagine you are very horrible." Suffice to say, she ran for the hills and he was mortified. He very much was not a creepy person and had no clue why the hell he said that. Nor has he, to the extent of my knowledge, harmed anyone. But Christ almighty, do I agree with the girl's decision to run. I went on a Tinder date several months ago around October, and it went really well. Girl had a job, wasn't crazy, and was cute, so we decided to have a second date. The only thing was that the second date was at her Thanksgiving party, so she could introduce me to her friends and family, which I thought was a bit too early. Anyways, I didn't have anything planned that day, so I decided to go. My job was to make the jungle juice for the party, and it consisted of the usual Everclear, Hawaiian Punch, lemonade powder, and ice combo I've used throughout college. It worked wonders and everyone got really drunk. Near the end of the party, my date and her friends told me I did an amazing job on the drink. My date also mentioned that she really liked the fruit I added into there, and that everyone at the party was trying to get some. For some reason, that did not sit well with drunk me, so I headed over to the alcohol canister to investigate. I grabbed my trusty ladle and started scraping the bottom of the canisters, and on one of the ladies I found some chunks of meat and pieces of ramen. That's when I realized that someone puked in the jungle juice. She said she wanted to record us having intercourse so she could send it to her ex-husband. Over dinner she told me she enjoyed being hit and her favorite kind of intercourse was safe word R. I deleted Tinder. I went to his place and we hooked up, but after he goes, "So you wanna know what I'm really into?" And I was like, "Sure," and then he grabs my foot. I have a really irrational fear of people touching my feet, so I ran the hell out of there. Anyway, I get to the living room on the way out, and it turns out to be his parents' house, and I look at his mother and see she was my old therapist. This isn't actually my story, it's my mom's. After getting out of an incredibly long and unpleasant marriage, my mom joined Tinder. Stella wanted to get her groove back, and I was 100% on her team. I'm an adult. I can't emphasize enough, she was not looking for a long-term connection. Her work sent her out of state for a while, and everything seemed perfect. She's gonna get her random D and there's no chance of it getting serious. She's sending me screenshots of the guys she's considering. I'm giving her tips on safety. And then she picks a guy. I immediately tell her that he's not a wise choice. This guy's profile is 98% red flags by volume. Whatever, she's an adult, I literally cannot stop her. Somehow in the 4 hours they are physically together, he figures out which flight she's taking the next day. He used that to find her final destination and somehow even find her home address. He used the public tax information to find her full name, and from there hunts down her Facebook. And finds my dad, calls him on the phone, and dishes everything. Sends him pictures and screenshots of convos. Then he starts sending my mom harassing messages that he loves her but that he can't trust her. Ultimately, my mom had to call the police. I matched with a girl and sent a lot of messages. Later that night, we talked on the phone and the conversation was going really well. So I asked to go out the next night. She agreed, and then 5 minutes later, she tells me that she needs to tell me something. She tells me that she's permanently in a wheelchair, so I'm either a jerk if I back out now, or a jerk if I lead her on. I figure why not, it's just a date and it could be a fun time still. We talk more that night and go to bed. The next morning she calls me early and tells me she's doing something crazy. She won't tell me what, but she said she'll show me later. A few hours goes by and she calls me back and tells me she's gonna send me a picture of what she did. I check my messages and I see a picture of her wrist, with my name now tattooed on it. We end the call and I immediately tell my friends about this crazy girl. Later that night I'm driving to her place because I figure she can be committed enough to tattoo my name on her. I should be committed enough to go on this date. Plus I have to know if it's real. I'm almost at her place and I realize that my car may not accommodate her wheelchair. And I know she drives, so I ask if she can drive us. I'm walking in the parking lot and she drives up and I get in the car. Now, I'd figured she had a handicapped enabled car. Nope, turns out she just uses 2 crutches to drive. One on the gas and one on the brake. I don't like this as we're driving on the Southern California freeways in traffic. We go eat and she gets a phone call from her daughter. Turns out she left her 10-year-old daughter at home alone and she's scared. But she's like, no, it's okay, I gave her something to make her sleep. She'll be asleep soon. So we finish up and I was gonna take her to see a movie. But the kid thing was too much, so we head home and my fingers are already crossed that we made it. When she turns to me while driving and says, wow, I'm kinda drunk. In my head, I'm like, 1 drink is all you had. But I ask if I can drive and she says no, she's gonna get in the fast lane and uses her crutch to hit the gas. I say my last prayers, but we made it back to her place. So I wheeled her back to her door and said goodbye and left. Tattoo was real though. Thank you so much for watching. If you have stories of your own, Feel free to write them in the comments. Maybe I'll make a video on them in the future. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.